All right, let's do a little bit on integrated information theory and the T.A.M.E approach for biological cognition. That's technological approach to every. So integrated information theory talks a lot about nested levels of intelligence, which I think helps sort of like complement slash supplement a little bit about what Michael Levin talks about with being an interface to this Platonic space, and that being a representation of how much kind of intelligence that we are able to access and interface with, right? So I think of it as these nested levels of intelligence that are now integrated across the layers. So this is where integrated information theory will come in. Think of like a Matryoshka doll, right? Like literally nested dolls. But all of the levels still inform each other. They all relate to each other. If you want to think about it more sequentially, you could think about it like the freaking avatar, right? Like all of those avatar states are integrated as the information he knows of his ancestors as the avatar. So he has a lot more integrated information, which is why he can learn all four elements. So you're able to get more when you integrate that information. You have more wisdom rather than just insights and data. So that's why I think it's really interesting when we talk about that and having like a better understanding of how to scale cognition and types of minds and understanding what intelligence is, because I think it will help us understand better how to distinguish the building blocks of integrated information theory and maybe how the integration and the communication actually happens. So let's get into it. Integrated information theory posits that consciousness corresponds to the amount of integrated information, often denoted as phi, in a system. This measure reflects how information is processed and connected with biological frameworks, Gentile 2023 and Oizmi et al. 2016. Research by Lung et al. Just demonstrates the practical application of IIT in understanding consciousness through neural data extracted from organisms such as Drosophila melanogaster, affirming IIT's ability to correlate integrated information patterns with conscious arousal. That point was useless to me because what is Drosophila melanogaster? See, this is where you can't just write what is in the thing. So it's the fruit fly. So it's a vital model organism in genetics and biological research, renowned for its rapid life cycle and simple genetic structure. Okay, so these fruit flies are probably where we're looking at for the rapid life cycle helps in simple genetic structure, so we're able to quickly understand how it's maybe being stacked. How is the genetic structure informing the type of information that it already has? How is that informing its morphogenesis? So that'll actually probably connect beautifully with when we talk about planarians with Michael Levin's biology. I should have probably done that right before making this. Anyways, we can talk about various studies that have aligned IIT's principles with human cortical activity during conscious perception, where we can talk about the hierarchical nature of it. So even when we have, conscious perception that's going on unconsciously or subconsciously rather, there is still other perception that's going on. Our brain is picking up on certain signals that we can access. I think about sometimes the movie Limitless, if you've seen that, where all of a sudden Bradley Cooper's character is able to access more of that. More of it bubbles up towards the conscious awareness from what it was subconsciously. But all that is his ability to access that information that's being integrated, because that information was technically present there all along. It was just subconsciously present, but it was still an integrated part of his system because all that he had to do was recall it from the subconscious, which in this case could take some cognitive control, or in the case of Limitless, the drug provides that ability. So now let's talk about nested levels of intelligence. So T.A.M.E is an advocate for understanding cognition through an evolutionary context, emphasizing the idea of scaled levels of cognition that can be mapped across diverse biological systems. So diverse biological systems innately have these nested levels of intelligence and the nested ways that, we break down genus and species even from a biological perspective. So his view is resonating with the hierarchical aspect of nested cognition, where the varying levels of the biological complexity have different cognitive capacities. So each of these have different sort of intelligences of their own, which is the cognitive capacity at the different layers of the biological complexity. So this makes me think a little bit, I want to get into it later, but as chakras, as the idea of being these integrated information hubs, right? Because they align with where a lot of the primary hormone producing glands are in the body, and more of the drivers of the other systems in the body. So this is where you have those as being these nested intelligences that stack and scale together beautifully to integrate the information with each other, and all of that together is what is producing this sense of self. It is that depth of information that is actually producing this, and this is where I think Aditya's rational approach and rational guide to chakras, another follower on TikTok here, or another friend on TikTok here, his material I think will work really great to help insert itself into this kind of scaffold. His language will be much better than mine. So we're talking about the integration of IIT with TAME has a great implication, which is whereas the biological complexity is increasing. So we're talking about a simple neural configuration, like in this case the fruit fly or the planarian cells that Levin uses, to the more intricate networks, potentially at the level of humans, or even we could do like an in-between animal, like an orangutan or like a koala bear, something like that. So too does the capacity for the higher levels of integration. So in that case, like the idea is that at a certain level of phi, at a certain level of amount of integrated information, at a certain level of you've had enough Russian dolls building on top of each other, you hit a threshold where you've kind of integrated enough information that we would qualify it as a conscious experience. We would qualify it as a subjectively conscious experience. So at this point, it brings up interesting questions about what is like a proto-consciousness, and at what level of superintelligence, perhaps even without just pure integration of information, just pure knowledge accumulation and the data that it has, do superintelligences have the capacity to exhibit a type of consciousness, even if it's at a lower level of like cognitive scaling or embodied intelligence compared to humans? Because I still think humans have a lot on it. At a computational side, AI is advancing quite a bit. So it'll be interesting to see how those parallels and the race sort of plays out. So let's now think about it through the lens of consciousness, right? Both of the frameworks are supporting the idea that cognition is not just binary, but it's existing on a spectrum. I would love to expand on the idea of neurodivergence being evolutionarily necessary, because we are now having nonlinear thinking becoming evolutionarily necessary to advance ideas and get into these more interdisciplinary fields to deepen the complexities of science. So that went somewhere, I think, from within. I don't know if that was really related. On a spectrum dictated by biological complexity and integrated information processing. For example, we have from Han et al. 2017 and Kim et al. In 2018, we have results from human electrocardiogram electrocorticography that suggests that levels of integrated information can provide insights into conscious experience, which is affirming that hierarchical patterns in neural activity can correlate with varying cognitive states. So what is that basically saying? Let's break that down. The various levels of integrated information, so when we understand how that information is being integrated across these multiple systems at a systems perspective, then we're able to understand what are the building layers of conscious experience at both the conscious level and perhaps the subconscious level, and how does that hierarchy break down, and what information is allowed to be accessed and what information sort of trickles up into conscious experience, or what information trickles down into subconscious experience. So the necessity for a biological interface is really important between both of these, because we need to facilitate these cognitive processes somehow, and this is where Michael Levin's work talks about the biological interfacing being present to actually have another layer of information that needs to be integrated, which is to this Platonic space, this latent space of possibilities, which I think is really interesting, because that provides a lot of credence to this idea that even within IIT, we might have a certain level of phi, but we ourselves are an integrated part of information in a larger form of a natural or cosmic intelligence, and we're just another cog in like a larger machine. We are the universe experiencing itself, and we are just a biological interface that has a certain level of phi, but there's another level of intelligence that is a form of integrated information that we still are interfacing and we still are accessing with. So I think that, Michael Levin's work is really, really fascinating. So let's now talk about this last bit with nested levels of cognition. The assertion with TAME, with the varying levels of neural complexity dictating cognitive capabilities, I think is very specific. And wait, what? I can't even read that sentence. Yes. Oh, yeah. So what I'm trying to get at is, I'm just going to skip this part now. So the idea is that Michael Levin's work, I only have a minute left anyways. The idea is that Michael Levin's work provides a lot of the foundation for saying, here's how the goal-directed behavior is being employed neurologically, right? How is it being employed, and what are the bioelectric patterns that are directing this type of development throughout, right? That is what evolution is that we're really looking at. So then what we want to understand is, where is it coming from? That bioelectricity, referring to that latent space of patterns, is that us integrating information from a different Platonic space? And if so, then we can have this better understanding of saying Michael Levin's work not only helps us define the cognitions sort of below us, but helps provide the foundation to say there is a level of Matryoshka doll above us that we are just a part of that we must consider. And so therefore there's more work to be done in breaking down the structure above us. But, we're just part of the universe experiencing itself, and that's what I think this all leads to. So there you go.